My phone buzzed with 31 missed calls in 2 hours. I sat in my truck outside Ohio Steel Works, engine off, watching the blast furnace glow through the evening shift change. The calls were all from the plant, and I knew exactly why they were panicking. 20 years of keeping this place running, and now they were learning what happened when I wasn't there to catch everything that fell. My name is Jordan Hayes. I'm 49 years old and I've been running operations at this steel plant for 20 years. After my wife Linda passed 4 years ago, it's just been me and my granddaughter Madison. She's 16 now, honor roll student with her heart set on engineering school. This job has been everything to us. The steady paycheck that kept us going after Linda's medical bills nearly wiped us out. Cut to understand why. I'm sitting here watching my phone blow up while my coworkers scramble. I need to go back 3 days to the meeting that changed everything. The conference room smelled like stale coffee and broken promises. I walked in expecting my annual review. Maybe finally getting that general manager position that opened up when Bill Peterson retired. After 20 years, my track record spoke for itself. 0 fatalities on my watch, safety ratings above federal standards, and respect from every worker on the floor. Vincent Palmer sat at the head of the table, new corporate efficiency expert brought in 6 months ago to modernize operations. Next to him was his son Alex, 28 years old, fresh MBA from some fancy school, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Kid had that look you see in people who think they know everything about nothing. Jordan, I've reviewed your performance. Vincent started without small talk. You're solid, reliable, but I don't think you meet the qualifications for the general manager position. The words hit like a punch to the gut. 20 years of 12 minus our shifts, weekend emergencies, keeping 200 workers safe around molten steel that could kill you in seconds. I felt that familiar tightness in my chest. The same feeling I got when the doctor told us about Linda's diagnosis. What qualifications am I missing? I asked, keeping my voice steady. We need fresh thinking, innovation. Alex here has some exciting ideas about streamlining operations, cutting redundancies. He'll be taking the general manager position at 15% above your current salary. Don't worry. You'll work closely with him. Your experience will be valuable in helping him implement changes. I looked at Alex. Kid was nodding like he'd already spent the salary increase. Meanwhile, I'm thinking about Madison's college applications on my kitchen table, the tuition bills coming next year, the promotion I've been counting on to finally get ahead instead of just getting by. What kind of streamlining? I asked. Alex leaned forward, eager to show off. Well, we've identified several redundancies in current safety protocols. Too many checkpoints. Excessive documentation. We can cut inspection times by 40% and increase production significantly. My jaw tightened. This kid was talking about cutting safety protocols like he was trimming a hedge. These weren't numbers on a spreadsheet. They were procedures that kept people from getting burned alive by 2,000 minus degree molten steel. Those redundancies exist because this is dangerous work, I said slowly. Every checkpoint catches something the previous one might have missed. That's old minus school thinking. Alex replied with the confidence only someone who'd never seen a workplace accident could have. Modern efficiency standards show that streamlined processes actually increase safety by reducing complexity. I stared at Vincent. You're putting someone in charge of operations who's never worked a day on the floor. Alex has an MBA from Northwestern and 2 years of consulting experience with operational optimization. He brings exactly the kind of fresh perspective we need. That's when I understood what was really happening. This wasn't about qualifications or innovation. This was about Vincent setting his kid up with a management position while I did the actual work. Alex would take the credit and the salary while I handled the daily reality of keeping people alive around industrial furnaces. But here's what they didn't know about me. 20 years in steel production teaches you when to fight and when to adapt. I stood up and gave them both a polite nod. Well then, I guess we'll see how those innovations work out. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with Madison doing homework across from me. College brochures spread between us. Ohio State, Case Western. University of Cincinnati. All expensive, all requiring the kind of financial commitment my current salary could barely handle. Grandpa, you okay? You look upset, Madison said, looking up from her calculus. Just work stuff, sweetheart. The promotion thing? Smart kid. I'd mentioned it a few weeks ago when the position opened up. Yeah. Didn't get it. Madison set down her pencil. That's garbage, Grandpa. You know that plant better than anyone. Out of the mouths of teenagers. Sometimes knowing how to do the job isn't enough, Madison. Sometimes it's about who you know. So what are you going to do? That was the question. I'd spent 20 years being the guy everyone called when things went wrong. The one who stayed late to fix problems, came in early to prevent them, worked weekends when emergencies hit. I'd been carrying this place on my shoulders, and they just told me I wasn't qualified to officially do what I'd been doing all along. I pulled out my actual job description, really read it for the first time in years. Whatever you decide, Madison said. I'm proud of you. You always do right by people. Smart kid. Smarter than her old man sometimes. That night, I made my decision. I was going to do exactly what they asked me to do. Nothing more, nothing less. Just my job as written. Sometimes the best way to prove your worth isn't to argue about it. Sometimes you just step back and let people see what happens when you're not there to catch everything that falls. Monday morning, I showed up at exactly 8 a.m. Not 6:30. Like usual. Not early enough to check overnight reports or brief the morning crew. Just 8 a.m. sharp, like my job description specified. The shift change felt different at that hour. Quieter. Most of the early crew was already deep into routines I'd helped establish over 20 years of being there before everyone else. Mike Rodriguez, our senior foreman, was staring at overnight incident reports with confusion written all over his face. Thank God. We've got issues from night shift. Furnace 3's temperature sensors are acting up again. The slag handling system had some kind of malfunction around midnight, and there's documentation problems with the new steel grade shipment. I checked my watch, then pulled out my highlighted job description. Temperature sensors are maintenance department. Submit a work order. Slag handling is equipment services, and documentation errors go through quality control. Mike looked at me like I'd started speaking Chinese. But you always handle the sensor issues. You know that system better than maintenance does. Not according to my official responsibilities. Jordan, what's going on? The truth was, I felt clearer than I had in months. For 20 years, I'd been carrying the weight of 3 different departments because it was easier than watching things fall apart. But that weight had a cost minus nights when I came home exhausted, weekends thinking about work problems, constant stress of being the person everyone expected to have all the answers, just following proper procedures. Mike. I headed to my desk and started my actual assigned tasks. Production schedules for my designated areas, safety documentation for equipment under my direct supervision, inspection reports for machinery I was officially responsible for. Around 9:15, Alex showed up for his first day as general manager. Fresh haircut, new hard hat, leather portfolio that looked more expensive than most of my tools. Jordan, good morning. Ready for an exciting day of operational improvements? Morning, Alex. What can I help you with? I wanted to start by reviewing current efficiency metrics and identifying areas for immediate optimization. I gestured to my computer screen. My efficiency reports are all up to date. Everything's in the system. Great. What about overall operational status? Any issues from overnight? You'd need to check with the night shift supervisor. I wasn't here. Alex's smile faltered. But Vincent mentioned you typically handle transition briefings. That was something I did voluntarily. It's not part of my official duties. Oh, well, who should I talk to about the sensor issues with Furnace 3? Maintenance department. Tommy Wright is the sensors specialist. And the slag handling problems? Equipment services. Steve Collins handles that system. Documentation errors, quality control. Rachel Foster's area. Alex was scribbling notes frantically, his confidence evaporating with each answer. This is more compartmentalized than I expected. Most operations are when you follow the organizational chart. What Alex was discovering was the difference between how organizations work on paper and how they work in reality. On paper, every department had clear responsibilities. In reality, most places only function because people like me spend their careers bridging the gaps between what departments are supposed to do and what actually needs to get done. By 10:30, the cracks were showing. I watched Alex bounce between departments trying to get answers about problems that required institutional knowledge you don't learn from MBA programs. Bobby Martinez from the union stopped by my desk around 11, looking frustrated. "Jordan," new kid asked me about the morning delay protocol. I told him it's not written down anywhere, that you just handle it based on weather and shipping schedules. Sounds like something the general manager should document then. But you know the protocol better than anyone. You created it. I did, on my own time, based on my own experience. Never got asked to make it official policy. Bobby stared at me for a long moment. This is about the promotion, isn't it? This is about doing my job. Nothing more, nothing less. Around noon, the first real crisis hit. Steve Collins from Equipment Services called in. One of the new guys had tried to adjust furnace pressure without following proper protocols. And now we had a temperature spike that could damage the furnace lining if not handled immediately. My phone rang. "Alex." "Jordan, we have a situation with furnace second. Can you come take a look? Is it in my designated area?" "What?" "This is urgent. We need someone with experience. Furnace 2 is managed by the West Operations team. I handle East Operations. But Mike's at lunch and this needs immediate attention." I looked at my job description. "My lunch break starts in 10 minutes. You'll need to wait for my core handle it yourself." Long silence on the phone. "Fine. I'll figure it out." I went to lunch at exactly noon. The cafeteria had a view of the production floor, and I could see Alex down there with a cluster of workers, all looking at temperature readouts like they were trying to decode hieroglyphics. Steve Collins waved at me through the window. "Good man. Been here 12 years. Learned proper procedures the hard way." He knew what needed to be done minus adjust the oxygen flow. Modify the temperature curve, coordinate with the cooling systems. Basic stuff, but it required someone with authority to make the call. I ate my sandwich and watched Alex make phone calls, probably trying to reach Vincent or maybe calling Mike to see when he'd be back. What he should have been doing was taking charge, making the decision, accepting responsibility. That's the thing about people who've never been in actual leadership positions minus. They think leadership is about having the right answer when really it's about making decisions with incomplete information. By 12:30 p.m., they'd gotten the temperature spike under control. Mike had come back early and handled it in about 5 minutes. But those 30 minutes of delay would affect the entire production schedule, creating problems someone would have to solve. That someone used to be me. Today, it would be whoever was officially responsible. When I got back from lunch, Alex was waiting at my desk. His hard hat was askew, his shirt was sweaty, and he looked like someone beginning to understand the difference between theory and practice. "Jordan, how did you learn all this stuff? The protocols, the relationships with different departments. 20 years of showing up early, staying late, and caring more about getting things done than whose job it technically was." He nodded slowly. "Vincent mentioned you'd help me transition into the role. I'm happy to answer questions during my scheduled consultation hours. Consultation hours, Tuesdays and Thursdays, to 2-4 p.m. You can book time through the administrative assistant." Alex stared at me like I'd told him the plant was moving to Mars. "What if there's an emergency? Then you handle it. That's what general managers do." That afternoon, I watched the plant struggle with small problems I'd been solving invisibly for years. Nothing catastrophic, just daily friction that accumulates when systems don't quite fit together. Alex spent most of his time on phone calls, trying to coordinate responses to issues that could have been prevented with institutional knowledge. At 5 p.m. exactly, I shut down my computer and headed for the parking lot. As I walked past the operations center, Alex was still there, surrounded by papers, looking overwhelmed. Tuesday morning brought our first real test. I arrived at 8 a.m. to find an overnight report with a red flag attached minus plant code for somebody screwed up and we need help. The report was brief but serious. Furnace first cooling system had malfunctioned around 3 a.m. Night crew had tried a temporary fix, but without proper authorization, they just shut it down and flagged it for day shift. Furnace 4 was our primary production unit, and according to the delivery schedule, we had a major order due out that afternoon high minus grade steel for a bridge construction project. My phone started ringing at 8:15. Mike Rodriguez. Jordan, we've got a problem. Furnace 4's down and we've got that bridge steel order due today. What do you want me to do? I pulled up equipment assignments. Furnace 4 isn't in my operational zone, Mike. That's West Operations equipment. But you know the backup procedures better than anyone. I wrote suggestions on my own time. They were never officially adopted as policy. Come on, Jordan. We need that furnace operational in 6 hours. Then contact maintenance and the West Operations supervisor. At 8:30. Alex called. Jordan, I need you to look at the furnace for situation. Maintenance says they need operational input before proceeding with repairs. And scheduled for consultation hours Thursday afternoon. This can't wait until Thursday. We've got a delivery deadline. Then you'll need to handle it yourself or find someone with appropriate authority. But I don't know the technical specifications. Neither did I when I started here. I learned it by reading manuals and asking questions. Where are the manuals? Technical library, 3rd floor. Check them out from Diana Wells. I hung up and went back to my assigned tasks. But I kept one eye on the West production area through my office window. Alex was down there with a clipboard, a couple of maintenance guys, and what looked like a thick manual he was flipping through like he was searching for buried treasure. Around 10 a.m., I heard commotion from the union office. Voices raised, someone slamming a door. Bobby Martinez appeared at my desk 10 minutes later, looking like he'd been through a blender. Jordan, that new kid just tried to tell our guys they could skip the safety briefing to make up time on the bridge order. Said the briefing was redundant for experienced workers. I looked up from my production reports. What did you tell him? I told him that briefing happens every shift. No exceptions. Been that way for 15 years. He got all huffy about operational flexibility and efficiency metrics. Sounds like a management issue. Bobby, I just handle leased operations. Bobby stared at me. You know what's going on here, don't you? I know I'm doing my job according to my official responsibilities. Jordan, these guys respect you. They'll listen to you even if they won't listen to some MBA kid. If something goes wrong, it'll be because the person in charge made a bad decision. That's what managers get paid for. Bobby shook his head and walked away. But I could see him talking to clusters of workers throughout the morning. Word was spreading that something was different, that the unofficial safety net they'd relied on for 20 years wasn't there anymore. By 9:45, they'd decided to attempt repairs on Furnace for using the backup cooling system. It was the right technical decision, but required someone with operational authority to sign off on safety protocols. I watched Alex sign the paperwork with nervous energy, like someone betting money they couldn't afford to lose. The repair took 4 hours. Under normal circumstances, I would have been down there coordinating between maintenance operations and quality control, making sure everyone understood the modified procedures. Instead, I completed my assigned paperwork while Alex supervised with a technical manual and 2 days of management experience. They got Furnace for back online at 1:30 p.m., cutting it close but meeting the delivery deadline. Alex looked relieved, probably thinking he'd navigated his first crisis successfully. But I could see the stress fractures forming. Workers giving each other looks when they thought he wasn't watching. Equipment running harder than usual because proper procedures were getting shortcuts. Safety margins getting thinner because someone who didn't understand the margins was making decisions about them. Wednesday brought more of the same. Small problems becoming bigger problems because they weren't getting caught early. Alex spending most of his time fighting fires instead of preventing them. The union filing more grievances into days than they usually filed into months. My phone calls dropped to almost nothing. For 20 years, people had called me when they needed answers. Now they were learning to either solve problems themselves or escalate them through official channels. Some problems got solved. Others festered. Diana Wells from the technical library stopped by my office Wednesday afternoon. Jordan, that new manager, checked out every manual we have on furnace operations. Kid looked panicked. Learning is good, I said, not looking up from my safety documentation. He asked me if you'd written any procedures that weren't officially published. I told him you'd written dozens over the years, but they were all informal recommendations. That's accurate. Diana lingered at my desk. Jordan, people are starting to ask questions. Workers are nervous. They're not used to making decisions without running them by you first. They'll adapt. Everyone's capable of following official procedures. But what if, Diana? I appreciate your concern, but my job is East Operations Safety Documentation. That's what I'm doing. She left. I could see her talking to other people throughout the afternoon. The plant grapevine was working overtime, trying to figure out what was happening and what it meant. Thursday morning, the inevitable finally happened. I was in my office when the emergency horn sounded at 10:47. 3 long blasts, minus injury on the production floor. All operations cease. Emergency response deploy. Through my window, I could see the problem. Furnace 3. The one with sensor issues from Monday that never got properly fixed. Someone had tried to manually override the temperature controls during a shift change, and molten slag had spilled across the platform where Steve Wilson was working the pouring operation. Steve was down. Alex was standing there with his clipboard, looking like someone who'd just realized that real consequences came with real decisions. My first instinct was to run down there. 20 years of experience kicked in when people were hurt. But I stopped at my office door. This wasn't my zone. This wasn't my responsibility. This was what happened when you put someone in charge who didn't understand the job and cut the safety procedures they thought were unnecessary. The paramedics worked on Steve for 20 minutes. Conscious, talking, severe burns on his left leg and arm. But it could have been worse. A lot worse. If he'd been standing 2 feet closer to the spill, we'd be talking about a fatality instead of an injury. My phone rang non-stop. Vincent, the plant ownership group, insurance investigators. Oh, SHA. Everyone wanting to know what happened, who was responsible, what our response plan was. I let it ring at 2:30 p.m. Vincent showed up at my office. No knock, just panic mode. Jordan, I need you down there now. Need me for what? The OSHA investigator wants to interview someone with operational knowledge about the accident. Alex has been trying to explain our procedures, but he doesn't know our procedures. Look, this is a crisis. We need all hands. I looked at him calmly. My hands are busy with my assigned responsibilities. If you need operational expertise for the investigation, you'll need to assign the task to someone with appropriate authority. Vincent's face went red. Fine. You want to talk about money title changes? We can discuss it after this crisis. I shook my head. This isn't about money, Vincent. You put someone in charge who doesn't understand the job. Told him to cut safety procedures to improve efficiency. Now someone's in the hospital. That's not a personnel issue. That's a leadership failure. Vincent stood there for a long moment, probably running through his options. Finally, what do you want? I want you to handle the crisis you created. With the manager you appointed and the procedures he recommended. Vincent left without another word. That evening, I got a call from Diana Wells, representing the plant ownership group. Jordan, we need you in the emergency board meeting. Now, ma'am, I'm off duty. If this is work-related, contact my supervisor. Your supervisor is part of the problem. We need someone who understands how this plant actually operates. I was there in 20 minutes. The boardroom was packed like a courtroom. Plant ownership union representatives. Insurance investigators, OSHA officials, customer representatives on speakerphone. Vincent sat at the table looking like someone watching his career implode. Alex was absent, probably with lawyers. Diana called the meeting to order. We're here to determine whether Ohio Steelworks can continue operations under current management or needs emergency oversight. The customer representative spoke by phone. We've been using this plant for 15 years without a major incident. Now we have one worker hospitalized and production delays affecting a critical infrastructure project. We need assurance that safety protocols are adequate and operational efficiency can be maintained. All eyes turned to Vincent. He started talking about comprehensive reviews and systematic improvements minus corporate speak designed to fill time while he figured out how to save his job. The OSHA investigator cut him off. Mr. Palmer, our preliminary findings suggest that modified safety procedures contributed to this accident. Can you explain the rationale behind reducing temperature monitoring checkpoints? Vincent looked lost. Those modifications were recommended by our new general manager as part of our efficiency initiatives. And where is this general manager? Well, Alex is handling the immediate response to the incident. Translation: Alex was hiding somewhere, trying to figure out how to spin this disaster into something that wasn't his fault. Diana turned to me. Jordan, you've been here 20 years. Walk us through what happened. I stood up with the folder I'd prepared during my lunch break. 3 days of documentation about every failure, every missed protocol, every knowledge gap that had emerged since I'd stepped back from unofficial responsibilities. The accident was preventable, I said simply. It resulted from 3 critical failures, minus inadequate equipment knowledge, modified safety procedures, and insufficient operational oversight. I walked them through the timeline. How Furnace 3's sensor issues had been flagged for days, but never properly addressed because the person who understood the system wasn't officially responsible for it. How Alex's efficiency improvements had eliminated redundant safety checks that existed specifically to prevent temperature control failures. How the accident happened because someone with theoretical knowledge tried to supervise an operation requiring practical experience. The fundamental problem isn't equipment failure or worker error. It's management that prioritizes credentials over competence and efficiency over safety. Vincent tried to interrupt. Sir, with respect, your operational model was designed by someone who's never operated a furnace, never supervised molten steel operations, and never had to explain to someone's family why they didn't come home from work. The room went dead quiet except for the sound of rain against the windows and distant machinery from the night shift. The insurance investigator spoke up. Mr. Hayes, what would it take to restore operational safety and efficiency? Complete documentation of all safety procedures. Mandatory hands-minus on training for all supervisory personnel. And operational oversight by someone with actual field experience, not just MBA theory. Diana nodded. Would you be willing to take on that oversight role? I looked around the room. At Vincent staring at his hands like they contained answers to questions he'd never thought to ask. At the union rep, nodding approval. At Faces finally understanding that running a steel plant wasn't the same as running a spreadsheet. I'd need full authority over safety protocols and operational procedures. General manager position with real decision-making power. And compensation that reflects the responsibility. Vincent finally looked up. Jordan, I'm sure we can work something out. Sir, this isn't a negotiation with you anymore. Diana smiled for the first time all day. Jordan, the board is prepared to offer you the general manager position. Full authority over safety and operational procedures. 20% salary increase effective immediately. Plus back-minus pay adjustment for the responsibilities you've been handling unofficially. The customer representative spoke from the phone. If Mr. Hayes is taking operational control, we're prepared to continue our contract and increase our order volume by 20%. I can work with that. 3 weeks later, I'm sitting in my actual office, the one with windows overlooking both production areas, watching the plant run the way it's supposed to. Smooth, safe, efficient. No emergency horns, no panic calls, no last-minute heroics to prevent disasters that should never have been disasters in the first place. Alex reports to Mike Rodriguez now. learning furnace operations and safety procedures from the ground up. Turns out when you strip away the entitlement and make him start at the bottom, he's actually not a bad kid. Just needed someone to teach him the difference between reading about leadership and actually leading people. Steve Wilson is back at work, leg and arm healed, with a story that gets more dramatic every time he tells it. The production floor is running better than ever, and our safety protocols are being studied by other plants in the region. Vincent found a position with a consulting firm downtown. Probably for the best. Some people are better at thinking about work than doing it. But the best part came yesterday, when Madison showed me her acceptance letter from Case Western University. Full scholarship, academic merit, with a personal recommendation letter that opened doors I never knew existed. Grandpa, I'm proud of you, Madison said as we looked over the letter together. You stood up for what was right. No, sweetheart. I just stopped doing what was wrong. There's a difference. That night, sitting on the back porch listening to the evening shift change at the plant, I thought about the past month. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't proving you're qualified. It's making people recognize they've been taking your qualifications for granted. I didn't have to fight for respect. I just had to stop giving it away for free. Now, every morning when I walk through those gates, people nod to me like they mean it. Not because I'm the guy who fixes their problems, but because I'm the guy who knows how to keep problems from happening in the first place. Sometimes justice isn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's just the quiet satisfaction of watching people finally understand what they should have known all along. Your value doesn't decrease because someone fails to see it minus. It just waits patiently until reality forces them to recognize what was always there. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply stop doing what you're not being paid to do. Real leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about having the experience to know which questions matter when lying.